evening, everyone. This is Jessica, and I will be joined momentarily by our senior analyst, Kenneth. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube. You can also follow us on Twitter at CrunchTimeVIP. Welcome to the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network's Top 25 rankings, where we take a different approach to evaluating the best teams in college football. Unlike traditional polls, our rankings are fluid and adapt each week based on the most current data. We assess every key aspect of a team's performance, going beyond just wins and losses. We start by looking at power rankings and strength of schedule, not just for the games already played, but also for the tough matchups looming ahead. Then, we break down each team across all three phases of the game: offense, defense, and special teams. For special teams, we dig deep into the kicking game, analyzing field goals, punting, and even the impact of kickoff and punt returns. These often overlooked plays can change the course of a game, and we make sure they get the attention they deserve. On offense and defense, it's not just about how many points are scored or allowed. We focus on how effective, efficient, and explosive a team is. We evaluate their ability to move the ball, make critical stops, and create big plays. Whether it's marching down the field with precision or generating game-changing defensive stands, we look at the numbers that truly matter. This isn't just another top 25 list. It's a comprehensive, data-driven analysis that reflects the complexities and nuances of college football. So, buckle up as we dive into this week's rankings and break down the teams that are making waves.
And with that, thank you, Jessica. I will gladly take it from here as we get everything situated here. The voice is starting to feel a little bit better. Sorry, I wasn't able to do our weekly college football games of the week breakdown. Just wasn't feeling as close to 100% as I am this week. So hopefully we are back in the full swing with that. So as Jessica mentioned, we are really trying to dive really deep into what really makes these teams as far as our college football playoff rankings, and based on the committee's criteria, which if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter, thank you so much for joining us. You'll see the committee's criteria where we're looking at strength of schedule, head-to-head competition, and comparative outcomes among common opponents without over-incentivizing margin of victory. So when we look at those criteria, you can see that our rankings are going to vary from what even the college football playoff committee comes out with here in a couple of weeks, and certainly any of the national polls that are kind of really static. You don't see a lot of fluidity amongst those rankings as we're going to have here. So let's go ahead and jump right in. And when I look at this week's poll, top 25 compared to last week, only two new teams were able to crack the polls, and you'll be introduced to those two teams here in just a moment. But let's go ahead and jump in with number 25. And coming off of a really big time win in conference play is the Memphis Tigers. And I got to be honest with you, I did not have this team winning that contest, but did a tremendous job there late in that ball game, getting that win at home over South Florida after a bounce back performance against UAB a couple of weeks ago. Quarterback Lewis for Memphis, fantastic job in that contest. 24 for 44, 27 for 44, 307 yards passing, contributed with 2 touchdowns in that final quarter of the ball game. Outscored South Florida 17-0. That is what propelled Memphis to that win. And as you can see from their current spot from last weekend, moved up 2 spots and got them into the top 25. So good job there by Coach Satterfield and his tremendous team there in the American Conference. We got a couple of more teams in the American Conference coming up that we'll be talking about here momentarily. Checking in at number 24 and off of a big-time conference win over in-state rival, the Michigan State Spartans, we find the Michigan Wolverines checking in. 31-20 win over Michigan State. I know all the hype and all of the attention has been placed on the freshman quarterback Bryce Underwood, but this team will go only as far as Justice Haynes, their best offensive player, takes them this season. Justice Haynes in that ball game against Michigan State, 26 carries, 152 yards, 2 touchdowns. Michigan, if you stick to the blueprint that has made you successful over the last 4 or 5 years, run behind that offensive line and feed your tailback and then get a little play action passing off of that. Bryce Underwood still has a couple of more years to develop, so we don't need to burden him with trying to carry this entire offense on his shoulders right now. So continue to feed Justice Haynes. I think if this young man gets the ball 25 times, not necessarily 25 rushing attempts, but touches the ball 25 times, I think he finds a touchdown in every game that he touches the ball 25 times. So tremendous job there for Michigan in that contest. Look forward to seeing if this team can continue their winning ways. 6-2 record does not leave them a lot of margin for error. So any other losses during the regular season would likely take Michigan out of the college football playoff berth there. Checking in at number 23, also up 2 spots this week, we find the Houston Cougars. And folks, I'm telling you, this is a team to absolutely pay attention to. A very hard-fought win on the road there against Arizona State. Even though they were outscored 16-0 in the fourth quarter, really kind of took control over this game and just held on for dear life as they were up 24-0 going into that fourth quarter. Fantastic comeback attempt for Arizona State, but just came up a little bit short. Connor Wegman, quarterback for Houston in this ball game, not so much beating Arizona State with his arm, but more so with his legs. 21 carries, 111 yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns. Connor Wegman, we are taking note of the work that you're putting in thus far this season, and that is what has propelled your Houston Cougars up 2 spots in our poll from last week to number 23. Coming in off of a bye week, and that's where we find out of the American Conference, the Tulane Green Wave. Tulane is sitting there in prime position to make a run at the American championship game. Still got some work to do, so cannot rest on their laurels at all with that 6-1 record. They will absolutely need to win out to get into that conference championship game. We'll see if Tulane can keep up their winning ways here for the remainder of the season. Checking in at number 21, we find the Tennessee Volunteers. Also up 3 spots after a very explosive outcome there in Lexington, Kentucky against the Kentucky Wildcats. Tennessee up 3 spots from last week in our poll, 6-2, 3-2 in SEC play. So Tennessee understands their mission from here on out. Win or you're out. Can't make it any plainer than that. Going to give a lot of credit here to Joey Aguilar. Joey has performed absolutely fantastic, and especially in this contest, 20 for 26, 396 yards passing, and 3 touchdowns. I think that he is playing some of the best football that he has played in his entire career. Really impressed with the job that this young man is doing. Need him to step up big, as Tennessee will be in a showcase game coming up on Saturday. And as I mentioned, Tennessee has no more margin for error. Any losses from here on out during the regular season will absolutely take Tennessee out of contention. But right now, I'm saying that there is a chance if they continue to take care of business. Checking in at number 20 is the Louisville Cardinals. And Louisville got off to a very sluggish start there against Boston College, but really poured it on there in the final 2 stanzas of this ball game. Beating Boston College 38-24, moving their record to 6-1 3-1 in ACC play, still sitting there with an opportunity to get to Charlotte to compete for an automatic bid in the ACC championship game. Going to highlight their running back, Brown, 14 carries, folks, 205 yards rushing. Also, did find the end zone there. Fueling that ground game for Louisville is what has put them in a very good position to get to that ACC title game, moving up one spot from last weekend's poll. Another team that is absolutely on the rise here, and that is where we find out of the Big 12, the Cincinnati Bearcats, up 4 spots this week. And what really impressed me with their game against Baylor is that offensive output in the first half, getting up on Baylor 24-6. Dave Aranda, head coach of Baylor, we may be having a conversation sooner rather than later about your tenure there as the head coach. But when I look at the box score for Cincinnati in this ball game, player I'm going to highlight is quarterback Brandon Sorsby. 111 yards passing, not a big output as far as passing goes, but also contributed 85 yards on the ground. So it wasn't so much the big numbers, but it was controlling the pace and tempo of this game, really keeping his team on schedule and finding the end zone 3 times there in the first half, getting a field goal as well, really put this game out of reach there in the first half. So great job there by the Cincinnati Bearcats. And as they just continue to move up our rankings each and every week, is something that we absolutely just have to take notice of. And when you're not looking at the emblem on the side of the helmet, but actually evaluating these teams based on their performances week in and week out, is how we get to these rankings that we're getting to. Checking in at number 18 out of the Atlantic Coast Conference is the Cavaliers of Virginia. They hold steady there at 18, so no moving up despite getting that 17-16 win in overtime against North Carolina. 7-1 on the season, 4-0 in conference play. But Virginia is playing a very dangerous game right now. Got to start getting some margin in these contests to not be in so many close outcomes week in and week out. Running back Taylor, fantastic job. 21 carries, 69 yards, big time touchdown there to help get this game into overtime, as neither team scored in the second half until we got to overtime. So another gritty performance there by Virginia to remain undefeated in conference play and moving their record to 7-1. Up next, up 2 spots from last week, is the beloved, and that is the midshipmen of the Naval Academy. Folks, absolutely love seeing this team each and every week pop up on the screen, and really just love being able to give a tip of the cap to all of our servicemen and women of all of the armed forces, but especially on the football field. Navy, with a 42-32 win over Florida Atlantic there in Annapolis, moved their record to 7-0 on the season, 5-0 in the American. Right now, the Navy midshipmen are our highest ranked group of 6 team right now. That's something to bear in mind, as we know that team will get a bid into the college football playoffs. Right now, we have it as the Navy midshipmen. Fantastic win there by Navy, led by their phenomenal quarterback, Horvat. 21 rushing attempts, 174 yards on the ground, 4 big time touchdowns. And folks, you want to talk about a scoring bonanza there in the fourth quarter. These two teams combined for 40 points just in the final quarter of play there. So Navy, fantastic job of getting the win. We know what's on the horizon for you here in a couple of weeks, but could not be prouder of the midshipmen. And as they say, roll goats. Checking in at number 16, off of a bye week, moving down 2 spots, is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. As I said, you don't have to play to move down a couple of spots. And our data, uh, just a slight bump down to the Fighting Irish, not so much because of what they did, but what a couple of teams that were behind them last week were able to get accomplished on Saturday. So Notre Dame, um, your predicament right now is you're going to start to need some of these teams to start taking some losses in front of you in conference play, because right now, you not being in a conference and losing your 2 big time games early on the season against Miami, against Texas A&M, is benefiting your strength of schedule, but it's absolutely hurting you as far as being able to leapfrog teams that you may come up against in a head-to-head matchup as far as being able to get into the college football playoffs. But Notre Dame, first things first, continue to take care of business and win, because with 2 losses already in the regular season, a third loss would absolutely take you out of any contention of getting a bid into the college football playoffs. Checking in at number 15, up 2 spots, and this is why Notre Dame moved down, is the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Folks, absolute bloodbath there in Lubbock against Oklahoma State. This is what good teams do to bad teams, especially coming off of a loss. Texas Tech did not waste any time there getting this game over early in the ball game against Oklahoma State. 21 rip at the end of the first quarter, 28-0 at the end of the second quarter, and then 42-0 at the end of the third quarter. At no point in the contest was Oklahoma State ever a threat to Texas A&M. I'm sorry, Texas Tech. This is what really good teams do. They take care of their business, get that game over with early, and get ready for the next week of ball games. Quarterback Griffins, 9 for 13, 172 yards, 1 touchdown. As I said, this game was over early. Get your starting quarterback out the game. Make sure that he doesn't suffer any injuries and continue to move forward. Now, speaking of Texas Tech, we know that they have some injury concerns there at the quarterback position. We'll keep an eye on the availability report for Texas Tech as we get ready for the big show coming up this week. Maybe the luckiest team in all of college football is the Texas Longhorns, moving up 1 spot, because my goodness, we credit wins, and not just how you get them, but the fact that you got them. And once again, Texas 45, Mississippi State 38, again in overtime. Folks, it took Texas scoring 24 points in the fourth quarter to get this game to overtime. You want to know why bad teams remain bad? Mississippi State, you blew another opportunity to get a signature win there for your head coach and Jeff Lebby, as he moves to 0-4 in conference play. Texas 6-2, 3-1 in SEC play. My goodness. Wow. Ron Wingo. Let's talk about Ron Wingo, because for the second week, this young man has absolutely bailed out his team as far as not taking a loss. When we look at him along with Ron Nibbett, who had the 79-yard punt return to help get this game into overtime, but Ron Wingo is the player that we're going to be talking about. 5 receptions, 184 yards receiving. We'll see if the quarterback that will not be named will be able to play this upcoming week, as he suffered a concussion there towards the end of the ball game. Now, quarterback not to be named had a really solid game. 29 for 46, 346 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, did have the 1 INT, but there's just something missing with this offense right now. And if Texas does not figure it out, we may not be seeing them in the polls here in upcoming weeks. Checking in at number 13 up this weekend is the Oregon Ducks in a absolute snooze fest there in Eugene, Oregon. Oregon moves their record to 7-1 overall, 4-1 in the Big Ten, led by running back Jordan Davis, who ran for 102 yards on 16 carries and 2 touchdowns. The inept ability for the Wisconsin offense, who finally got a touchdown there in the fourth quarter. And as we were listening to the radio broadcast, this team was coming off of back-to-back shutouts. So you're talking about the better of 11 plus quarters without scoring a point. Tells you all you need to know about Wisconsin. But Oregon, the theme of the rest of this year is to survive and advance. It's not going to look pretty every week, and certainly that performance did not look pretty, but your overall resume is able to get you up 3 spots in this week's poll. Checking in at number 12 is the Oklahoma Sooners. And folks, if it wasn't for some bad coaching by Lane Kiffin there in the third quarter, I don't even think that this final score is that close. At no point was Oklahoma the right side in this ball game, and quite honestly, I have serious concerns about this program under this head coach going forward. This team cannot run the ball, and we are now a year and a half into this. And despite having a new offensive coordinator, that offensive line is still a liability. When we look at the breakdown of this game, and I'm just looking at the Oklahoma rushing stats here. As a team, Oklahoma ran the ball 28 times for 136 yards. For Oaks, 65 of those 136 yards came on a busted play by Ole Miss's defense, where Xavier Robertson was able to get free and break off a long run. If you take out that run, you're talking about 27 carries for barely 70 yards. Folks, that's not Oklahoma football. And I've had plenty of Oklahoma fans reach out and echo that same sentiment. You wanted Ben Arbuckle to juice up the offense? Well, right now I'm not really impressed with what I'm seeing from Oklahoma. And I mentioned that big showcase showdown that they have coming up. I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the show. But right now, Oklahoma's got a lot of work to do and no margin of error. One more loss and you're out. Now, strength of schedule is what's keeping Oklahoma currently where they are right now. But suffering that loss did move them down 1 spot. Same can be said for Missouri, as they lost a very hard-fought game here in my backyard in Music City to the Vanderbilt Commodores. And Missouri, that game was there for the taking, just did not execute in some very critical moments there for Missouri. Moving down 1 spot, and again, no margin for error for Missouri when we look at their record. 6-2 on the season, 2-2 in conference play. Another loss by Missouri will absolutely take them out of playoff contention. So Missouri, with having to make the move as far as the quarterback goes, because Bo Prabilla suffered a gruesome leg injury there. Thoughts with that young man as he gets ready for a very difficult recovery period there. But Missouri as a team, a lot of work to do and not a lot of time to do it. As we crack the top 10 now, and checking in at number 10, we find the Miami Hurricanes. First half tells one tale of this ball game as Stanford basically held Miami in check in the first half. Going into intermission, 7-7. Miami scores 35 points there in the second half. Um, Mark Fletcher Jr., 23 carries, 106 yards, three rushing touchdowns. Stanford just really ran out of gas there in the second half, and you can see by the final score, Miami poured it on, but for the better part of 30 minutes of this contest, was not impressed with what I saw by Miami. But again, it is about surviving and advancing when you don't have your fastball each and every week. So we'll credit Miami for that. That's why you see them moving up 2 spots this week. 6-1 overall, 2-1 in ACC play. As it stands right now, Miami does not control its own fate to get to the ACC title game. So they're going to need some assistance there if they're going to find their way into the ACC title game. Checking in at number 9 is Brigham Young University, and the Cougars just absolutely phenomenal. What their head coach is doing, Kalani Satake, could not be more impressed. 41-27 road win versus Iowa State. And when I look at the performance there, the young man that I'm going to highlight is Bear Bachmeyer. This young freshman quarterback is just absolutely phenomenal. 22 for 35, 307 yards passing, 8.8 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, no INTs. Also contributed 49 rushing yards on 12 attempts, 4 yards per carry, and then added a rushing touchdown as well. This team just continues to win there and not being talked about nearly enough. But here at Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network, we are talking about BYU, and this team has an excellent chance of getting to Dallas and competing for the Big 12 championship game. Checking in at number 8 is the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, fresh off of a 41-16 victory there over the Orangemen, moving their record to 8-0, 5-0 in conference play. And what can you say about their phenomenal quarterback, Haynes King? Almost 400 yards of total offense and 5 total touchdowns. 25 for 31, 304 yards passing, 3 passing touchdowns, 12 carries, 91 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He did everything but take tickets and hand out programs for Georgia Tech in this contest. Haynes King is making a push to be invited to New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony. And if he continues to put up numbers like this, it's going to be hard to leave him off the ballot. Great job there by Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech moves up 1 spot for us in this week's poll, up from number 9. Just a tremendous job there by the Yellow Jackets. Speaking of phenomenal jobs, as I mentioned, the Commodores of Vanderbilt. Not since Lionel Richie has the Commodores been this popular. Getting a big-time win again at home over Missouri, 17-10. Doing whatever it takes to get a W is all you can ask of a team this late in the season. 7-1 on the season, 3-1 in conference play. And when we look at their player to watch, is it anybody else other than Diego Pavia? Not his greatest performance, but it was a winning performance, and that's all that matters. Only 10 for 19, 129 yards passing. No passing touchdowns, did have the INT, but 8 carries, 20 yards, 1 rushing touchdown there. And the young running back, Young, 4 carries, 86 yards, broke off that long 80-yard run to really kind of help this team there at the beginning of the second half there. So fantastic job there by Vanderbilt. And folks, we have to now start talking about Vanderbilt being a potential college football playoff team. They're sitting in prime position, still have some work to do at the end of the season, but right now in a very great spot. Up next, off of coming during their bye week, and trust me, I know it. Don't love it, but right now the Ohio State Buckeyes sit as our number 16, down 2 spots from number 4 last week. Again, nothing that Ohio State can do about their strength of schedule because of what teams around them on their schedule, especially in conference play, are doing. What was supposed to be a marquee matchup against Penn State this week will absolutely be nothing more than a footnote at this point, as Penn State definitely didn't fulfill their end of the bargain as far as keeping this a marquee game of the week. So, Buckeye fans, I understand it. I'm not in love with it, but the data is the data. And because of what happened in some other games, is why your Buckeyes move down 2 spots. But fear not. Continue to take care of business. You'll find yourself with inside of that top 5. Speaking of the top 5, we have the Georgia Bulldogs off of their bye week as they get ready for the world's biggest, world's largest outdoor cocktail party, if I can get my thoughts together here. Staying at number 5 is the Georgia Bulldogs. We know that they got the Florida Gators coming up on Saturday. We'll see if Georgia takes care of business in that ball game. Checking in at number 4, fresh off of that road win there in Norman, we find the Ole Miss Rebels. Lane Kiffin, I said it on Twitter. Right now, you are your own worst enemy. With some of the coaching decisions that you were making there in the third quarter, open the door for Oklahoma to get back in this contest, and you had to hold on for dear life in the fourth quarter. Why are you going for it on 4th down inside of your own 25-yard line when you're up 12 points in the third quarter? Makes no sense, and there's no analytics that would ever justify that poor of a decision. But credit to you, credit to your team for getting a much needed win there on the road, because this is the kind of game that you lost last year that kept you out of the college football playoffs. So credit to Lane Kiffin, credit to his staff, and a credit to those players. 7-1 on the season, 4-1 in conference play. Player of the game, without a doubt, is Chambliss. 24 for 44, 315 yards passing, 1 touchdown. Brett Venables stopped blitzing undersized quarterbacks who can get out of the back door and just run through wide open field there. Something to think about with Oklahoma as they get ready for that big time game coming up this week. Ole Miss, continue to take care of business. You'll find yourself in the college football playoffs. Checking in at number 3 is America's team, led by America's coach, Curt Cignetti. And folks, the reason why the Indiana Hoosiers are still sitting there at number 3 is because this team understands how to take care of business. Against an overmatched UCLA team, wasted no time in getting this game with over early. 35-3 going into intermission is my definition of getting this game over with early. Fernando Mendoza, 15 for 22, 168 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and he was out of that game in the second half early because this game was put to bed early. Good teams do not let bad teams stick around for 4 quarters. Indiana took care of business, and that's why they hold steady at the number 3 spot. Checking in at number 2, and not a surprise, is the Alabama Crimson Tide in a very letdown spot. Road win there in Columbia, South Carolina over the Gamecocks. Alabama had to fight their way back there in the fourth quarter, outscoring South Carolina 15-7 there to get that win. And for Alabama, this was the kind of game that they lost last year and kept them out of the college football playoffs when they went to Norman, Oklahoma, with everything riding on the line, absolutely laid an egg in that ball game. This one was just really sloppy and should have been expected. They're coming off of 4 straight wins over top 25 teams in 4 consecutive weeks. You expected a little bit of a letdown in this contest, and that's what we got from Alabama. But difference is this year they were able to find a way to get a win. Ty Simpson, 24 for 43, 253 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Lenore Sellers with a crucial fumble there in the waning moments of that contest against Alabama was really the difference. But Alabama did just enough to get the win as they go into a much needed bye week as they get ready for the home stretch there, as they will welcome in LSU in 2 weeks there. And finally, once again, at the number one spot is the Texas A&M Aggies. Texas A&M absolutely laid the wood there in Baton Rouge. Night game in Death Valley, I was told. LSU at night. Folks, LSU was without their starting tackle, and the young man that stepped in just was not ready for that kind of defensive pressure that Mike Elko was going to bring. And folks, close game going into halftime, 16-14. Texas A&M outscores LSU 35-7, and that 7 came after this ball game was well decided there. So garbage time touchdown. Texas A&M absolutely thoroughly beat the living crap out of LSU there in Death Valley. Marcel Reed, I got a chance to see this young man as he played his high school ball not too far from me. Really impressed with the game that he had. Best game in his Texas A&M career. 12 for 21, 202 yards passing, 2 passing touchdowns, but was lethal on the ground as he exposed some bad rush lane defense there by LSU, carved it up for 13 carries, 108 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. That young man looked a lot like Jaden Daniels a couple of years ago for LSU. That game also ended the coaching tenure there for one Brian Kelly, as he was fired early Sunday morning after that performance. As I kind of mentioned a few weeks ago, Brian Kelly was told that if he did not beat Texas A&M or Alabama, he would be let go. That 35-7 performance there in the second half was enough to seal his fate. So with that, that is our top 25. And now I did have a couple of questions in the chat that I will try to address here and kind of set the stage for next week here. So as we move to some of the questions, and as I mentioned, why would Ohio State drop 2 weeks? 2 spots on their bye week? It wasn't so much anything that Ohio State did or didn't do on their bye week. It was the fact that Ole Miss got a very big road win is what moved them up. And then also by strength of schedule, it is really what separates Ole Miss from Ohio State as far as the data goes right now. That doesn't mean that Ohio State isn't better than Ole Miss or can't compete. That's not what the data is saying at all. When I look at the point differential between our system is where we have Ole Miss and where we have Ohio State. If you give me just a moment, I will absolutely try to find that here. So you're looking at a very slim margin between the two. You're talking about point 0.9 on that scale. So very slight margin there. But what's penalizing Ohio State, as I mentioned, is Penn State really not being a quality win. Um, if Ohio State is able to beat Penn State, that's going to be their fifth loss already in the season, and that's just not going to improve Ohio State's strength of schedule or their strength of record. So nothing wrong with the Buckeyes, but it's just a victim of circumstance there. Next question comes in. How worried should Notre Dame be as far as making the top 12? I think Notre Dame should be absolutely terrified. Um, Looking at how many teams above them have either no losses or one loss, you're talking about Texas Tech, Oregon, Miami, BYU and Georgia Tech, Vanderbilt, Ohio State, Georgia, Ole Miss, Indiana, Alabama, and losing the head-to-head to Texas A&M. So they would need Texas A&M to really lose out, which would hurt their strength of schedule. But because A&M has the head-to-head, that's just not good for Notre Dame. So if I'm an Irish fan right now, I would be extremely worried about making the college football playoffs because you don't really have a lot of games that's going to boost up your strength of schedule remaining on the season. And then finally, as always, what was my biggest surprise in this week's rankings? And I would say the thing that jumps out to me the most is there wasn't a lot of significant movement like we saw last week. So the biggest mover this week was Cincinnati moving up 4 spots this week on the plus side. And as far as teams that are still ranked, I'm trying to see who was the biggest fall. There's a couple of teams that moved down 2 spots, but no team really significantly gained ground or lost ground. Basically, the top five, the only change with the top five was Ohio State moving down 2 spots and Ole Miss moving up 2 spots based on the strength of schedule win for Ole Miss there. So not a lot of movement there. So we'll see what holds for us this week coming up. As I look at potential game of the weeks, um, games coming up, and what normally would be a game where we would feature Georgia and Florida this week, well, that game is out now. As I mentioned, Ohio State and Penn State should have been the marquee game of the week. We're not going to be covering that game as Penn State is 3-4, 0-4 in the Big Ten. So no need to really cover that game. So let's take a look at some potential matchup games that we will be covering. I think one game that we would definitely probably have on our radar is the Cincinnati Bearcats heading to Salt Lake City to take on the Utah Utes. Very important game there in the Big 12. Another contest that we will likely have our eyes on. I think this is going to be an elimination game with USC traveling to Lincoln to take on the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I think that may be a game that we add to the slate here. In another elimination game in Knoxville, beautiful Neyland Stadium there. Oklahoma at Tennessee. The loser of this game certainly out. The winner keeps their hopes alive. So I think that may potentially be our game of the week. Vanderbilt at Texas. I certainly think that will probably be a co-game of the week. And then our final game will be a Commanders and Chiefs game where Air Force will welcome in the Air Force Falcons will welcome in the Black Knights of Army. Regardless of the records, folks, we would never pass up an opportunity to highlight the service academies when they're playing against each other. So that will be our leadoff spot game there with Army and Air Force. And then you know what, we're going to make that our bonus game. So we're going to do a 6-pack this week. And then finally, Navy at North Texas, as that game will have playoff implications coming up. So let's go ahead and lock that in. We're going to do a 6-pack of games. We're going to start with Army at Air Force, followed by Navy at North Texas. And we'll tweet these out on our Twitter page here sometime later on today. We're gonna leave in USC and Nebraska because there's something interesting about that game, and around these parts we like interesting. Cincinnati at Utah, and then of course the two marquee games of the week, both in the Southeastern Conference, as Oklahoma travels to Neyland to take on Tennessee, and Vanderbilt heads to Austin to take on the Texas Longhorns. Want to say thank you for joining us on this special broadcast. We'll probably move these to potentially Sunday night. We were still working out some data on Sunday, just really didn't have the time to get it out then, but I think we got the tweaks lined out. So looking forward to having the college football playoff show back in its old window. But if we find it beneficial to move it to Monday night, that's something that the team and I will discuss going forward. So a lot of things to get ready for, a lot of games to get prepped for, 6 big time games that will have playoff implications. So looking forward to another fantastic week of college football. As always, you can check out our website at www.crunchtimesportsadvantage.com. You can catch the replay of this show in a link on that website, as well as your favorite podcast platform. As always, on behalf of my fantastic team, Jessica, Jennifer, Summer, Billy, and the Young Guns, this is Kenneth, founder and senior analyst for the Crunch Time Sports Advantage Network. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you back here really soon for the big show. Voice hopefully will allow me to get through that show. Have a great day, everybody, and as always, God bless.